Okay, and all the settings are good. So Carol, you can start whenever the clock rolls over if you're ready.
Right. Thanks for your patience with me. Since we're still meeting virtually, I also had to just remind some of the younger members of the household that I'm about to start a meeting. Okay, seeing as we have all of the commissioners that we're expecting tonight, I will now call to order the August 18th meeting of the Salem Historic Landmarks Commission. Will the recorder please take roll call?
Commissioner Cunningham?
Here.
Commissioner Fuller?
Here.
Commissioner Holton?
Here.
Commissioner McGlinty-Timbrook?
Present.
Commissioner Inman?
Here.
Commissioner Zimmerman?
Here.
And Commissioner Ponce is absent, excused. Commissioner Mulvihill is absent, and Commissioner Kurteman is absent, excused. If Patricia ends up joining, I'll let you know when that happens, but we have quorum.
Thank you. Now it brings us to our first item on our agenda tonight, which is public comment. The commission will now hear testimony from the public concerning any items that are not on the agenda. And I believe we have someone here who's wishing to speak at this time.
Yes, we have Robert here.
Hi. So I guess I'm here. Well, one, just to kind of say hi, introduce myself. My wife just acquired or bought the dental practice at 13th and Chemeketa, which I don't know if some of you may know is in a historic building. And I just checked, and it's not in the historic district, but it's right there. They cut out that area. Anyway. So yeah, just
Robert,
wanted to say that.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you, but
name and address.
Yeah, name and address for the record, and you have 5 minutes total. So
okay,
go ahead.
Robert Bierma, and the business address is 1320 Chemeketa Street, Northeast, Salem, Oregon. Yeah, so I just wanted to say that first. But then the thing that I was contacting everybody about, or my interest, is in doing a street mural, that part of the street mural program in that area. And originally I was thinking 13th and Chemeketa, but I guess that won't work because it's a collector street. I still think it might be the better choice because I actually think it would work as a traffic calming mechanism, but that's just that. So we're looking at some other, like the traffic engineer or the person at the Public Works suggested farther down on Chemeketa Street between 13th and 14th as a possible area. And I'm willing to look at some other areas too. I kind of want to look around, but I thought it would be great as part of the design to be kind of thought of as a gateway element to the historic district, kind of highlighting ideas or aspects of the historic district in the design. Kind of my initial first idea, kind of going with that intersection, had been kind of like a wheel of time kind of thing, where it would be kind of like changing scenery of the built environment over time. And because there's a bicycle way along Chemeketa, I thought it'd be kind of cool to have like a bicyclist in like maybe 4 different sections, kind of changing the bicycle design and stuff like that over time. But anyway, those are my ideas. But I'm going to continue to be working on this with the neighborhood organization. And I just wanted to put it out there and see if you guys wanted to have feedback and input on the design, and in particular for its ability to act as a gateway to the historic district.
Excellent. Well, thank you for bringing that to us tonight and bringing that up. I don't know exactly what times we have for commenting and feedback on that, but definitely we always like to see anything, and we like to work with the community around things, not just what we do for reviews, but anything that's supporting our resources in our community. So I'm sure that the board would be, the commission would be interested in discussing and providing input on a project like this.
Great.
If I may, so Robert, once you've got landed on a location and have finalized that with Public Works, then maybe reach back out to me and we can actually schedule you to come during a discussion item, so you'd have more than 5 minutes and then you can present your concept and get more feedback.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay.
Wonderful. Thank you. Are there any other members of the public that have signed up or joined the meeting? Zach?
No, we do not have any additional members of the public.
All right.
And Robert, you're free to stay if you'd like, but you're not required to, so you can go ahead and head out if you want to.
I'm gonna head out. I got something else I gotta do, but
No
thank
worries. Thank you for joining. Okay, well, this brings us to our 4th agenda item tonight, which is the approval of the minutes. May I please have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll move to approve the minutes.
Second.
Thank you. So Commissioner Zimmerman moves, Commissioner Inman seconds, approving the minutes. Are there any corrections or other notes from any commissioners? Seeing and hearing none, I will now call for a vote to approve the minutes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right. Motion passes. Now, bear with me just a second. So tonight we have one public hearing. And just let me shift my copies around here. I will now open the public hearing for historic review case number HIS 22-21, which is a proposal to replace the existing Quisenberry pharmacy sign at 150 Liberty Street Southeast. Will the recorder please read the hearing procedure statement into the record?
This is a public hearing to consider case number HIS 22-21 for property located at 150 Liberty Street Northeast. The criteria applicable to this hearing are listed in Salem Revised Code, Chapter 230.070, General Guidelines for Non-Contributing Buildings and Structures, and Chapter 230.056, Signs in Commercial Historic Districts. Failure to raise an issue prior to the close of the public hearing with statements or evidence sufficient to afford the Historic Landmarks Commission and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue precludes appeal to the hearings officer on that issue. A similar failure to raise constitutional issues related to proposed conditions of approval precludes an action for damages in circuit court. Prior to the conclusion of the hearing, any participant may request an opportunity to present additional evidence or testimony. The Historic Landmarks Commission will then either continue the public hearing or leave the record open for at least 7 days.
Thank you. And now I would like to ask if there are any conflicts of interest, ex parte contacts that anyone who's on the commission tonight would like to declare at this time. I'm not seeing or hearing any. So now I will call for this staff presentation.
Good evening. I'm Kimberly Fitzgerald, the Historic Preservation Officer for the City of Salem. I'd like to enter the staff report, its attachments, and all public testimony into the record. So this property is located on Liberty Street and is a historic non-contributing resource to our downtown district. The Quisenberry Pharmacy building was actually constructed in 1926. I did actually look, I was hoping I could find some pictures from 1926 before the conversion. There were actually two buildings that were converted into one when the pharmacy moved to this location in 1955. The pharmacy was actually previously located at 130 South Liberty. So the drugstore has been in operation in Salem since 1919, which I think is really cool. And it's been owned by several generations and operated by several generations of the Quisenberry family. So for 67 years, prior to becoming a drugstore, one of these two buildings, there was a restaurant, which I kind of got a kick out of, known as the Black Cat Restaurant. And there was also the Bible Book House. So I thought that was an interesting juxtaposition of different uses of the buildings here. So the two buildings were significantly remodeled when Quisenberry's moved here. And so the building permit records actually show in 1953 and 1954. That's when the remodels actually occurred. And the exterior of the brick buildings were clad with a thin layer of stucco as part of this remodel. And so due to these alterations, the resource is considered historic, even though it's from 1926, but it's non-contributing because of the alterations to the exterior, especially the storefront. So the proposal that you're considering tonight is a proposal to replace the existing signage, which is in poor condition, with new signage, which will be lit with internal LED lights. The existing sign was installed in 2003 with individual letters attached to a metal frame. Some of these letters are in danger of falling off right now. So the proposed new signage is aluminum with letters routed out of the aluminum face with white LEDs, and the proposed illumination will use 140 watts and incorporate something called halo illumination using reverse pan channel letters. And the conduit will be located on the interior of the sign cabinet, so it won't be visible from the exterior of the sign. And generally, the size of the sign is approximately the same size, perhaps a little bit smaller than the existing signage. And in your packets and also on the screen here, you have some pictures of similar signage, which previously have been approved by the Landmarks Commission. You can see here the Ritter's sign and the Thai Orchid restaurant. And the applicants also included some other signage, historic signage, as part of the application. So now I'm going to go through the applicable design guidelines and standards. So SRC 230.070, these are our general guidelines for non-contributing buildings, and there's materials and design guidelines. So generally, the proposed materials are consistent with those in the district. The signage is constructed of metal and acrylic. And this is something that is found on signage throughout downtown. And the design is compatible. It will be substantially the same size and no character defining features will be obscured. While the LED lighting is new, it does meet the applicable standards, which I'll talk about in a minute regarding the wattage. And now I'll go through the standards for signs in commercial districts, SRC 230.056. It is not a reconstruction of a historic sign, so that standard is not applicable. So we're just going to be considering the standards relating to permanent non-historic signs. The first standard related to materials, that the sign shall be of wood, metal, or acrylic. The proposed standard here has been met because the signage is going to be metal and acrylic. The design also meets the standards because it's placed within the same location as the existing sign, flush to the front facade. No character defining features will be obscured, and the illumination is limited to 140 watts with no exposed conduit. So overall, the signage is compatible in size and scale with not just the building itself, but also the downtown historic district. So staff recommends the Landmarks Commission find that the applicable standards in SRC 230.056, as well as the guidelines, have been met for this proposal. There's been no public comment. We have received an email in support from Michael Livingston from the Can Do Neighborhood Association. The Building and Safety Division has indicated that sign permits are required. Public agency comments, we have not received any. And so in conclusion, staff recommends the Landmarks Commission approve the proposal. That concludes the staff report.
Thank you, Kimberly. So at this time, I'd like to ask, do any commissioners have questions for staff? I'm hearing none and seeing no hands raised. We'll now call for the applicant's presentation or testimony. Zach, are we expecting anyone?
So we did send a letter and information for how to join the meeting and all that information to the applicant. However, they have not logged in. They didn't give me any indication that they were coming, but I don't know if they told Kim anything. So at this point, I don't expect them, but I'm not 100% sure either way.
All right. So with that, we would be moving through asking for any other testimony. And again, as we established, we don't have anyone else who's joined the meeting. Neighborhood association representatives or anyone who signed up or reached out.
That's correct.
For the minutes, I think we might want to, could you note that for the applicant's testimony that they weren't there, that there was no testimony?
Yes, I will note that in the minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. One last time, is there anyone else who would like to testify? All right, hearing none. I'll go back to the commission to see if anyone during while we looked for other testimony, does anybody have any additional questions for staff? All right. There's no one here provided testimony other than Kimberly's, but I'll just read it anyway. Would anyone who provided testimony like to request the record remain open to submit additional evidence not yet presented? Hearing none, I will now close the public hearing. No additional testimony will be accepted at this time without formally reopening this hearing. I will now entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve as staff's recommendation.
I'll
Okay.
second the motion.
All right, Commissioner Timbrook moves and Commissioner Inman seconds a motion to approve as per the staff recommendation. Commissioner Timbrook, to your motion.
not much there. Seems it's fairly straightforward and good design, and it's not very different from what it was before, and you certainly don't want any parts falling on people. So yeah.
Thank you. This is our opportunity for any discussion. So are there any other commissioners who have anything they'd like to share or things that they're think about this hearing? Seeing or hearing nothing, I will chime in essentially similar to what Commissioner Timbrook said. I don't see any real concerns with this this type of proposal. The main thing that I was thinking of preparing for this meeting is how, through the changes we've done with our with code and other things over the last during my time on the commission, how many of some of the more items like this that don't come before us for hearings anymore. Instead, we have the things where it's really getting involved in big projects and not just signs and smaller stuff. So that being said, I really do appreciate, as always, that we still have our businesses that are supporting all of the historic resources and other things that make up our downtown, still working with the commission and working through the process. With that, I will now call for a vote. All those who are in favor of the motion to approve as per staff recommendation, say aye.
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 Aye. All those opposed say nay. All right, the motion passes. I don't have a gavel.
We got to get you one.
All right, thank you. All right, so that was, as I said, that was our one public hearing for tonight. So now we move forward to action items, and we have one action item, which is the Civic Center photo contest. Zach,
I'm
do you
going to
wanna
go
lead us off? Thank you.
Yeah, well, I put together a brief PowerPoint. But I don't know if this is going to be the easiest way to view things, just because having more than one photo on the screen at a time makes them smaller and harder to view the details. But if you'd like, I can switch over to the individual photos. But so as you all know, we hosted a photo contest for the Civic Center's 50th birthday, which is today. We received 10 submissions in total, and you each did a preliminary round of voting to get to the top 2 in each category. And these are our top 2 in each category. So the first category was animals and wildlife at the Civic Center. The top 2 photos with equal votes were City Worker Bee and the Great My Confused Blue Heron. So these are the 2 photos that you have to choose from. The way that we've done this in the past is we open the floor to discussion, and then we do a roll call vote. And when I call your name, you tell me which of the 2 photos you'd like to vote for, and whichever gets the most votes wins.
Okay. So again, we don't have to follow a formal procedure in this discussion. So does anybody have thoughts or things they'd like to share about either or both of these photos? Commissioner Fuller.
I think that between the 2, at least and what swayed my my poll in the first place was that we're focusing on the Civic Center, and like for me, the bees featuring the Civic Center really was it might be heavy-handed, but it really like sung to me in that regard. Whereas the heron is cool looking and funny, but I didn't really know very well that heron statue was even there. So that's kind of like, but that is what pulled me towards the direction of these bees here.
Excellent. Commissioner Zimmerman.
I agree with what Commissioner Fuller was saying about when you look at the two photos, the city worker bee one, you have a better sense of the Civic Center behind there. And I think it is kind of a clever play. I don't know if the person who submitted it chose the name City Worker Bee or not, but I kind of like that play on it too, seeing the bees right there. And then you've got the, City Hall looming in the background.
Just as a point of clarification, all the titles and descriptions were ones exactly as they were submitted by the people who entered. So I played no part in that. I just literally copied and pasted them. So
and does anybody else have anything they'd like to share or discuss before we have a roll call vote?
Yeah, I would.
Jump in, please.
Yeah,
Commissioner Inman.
I would like to give a shout out to the landscape for the Civic Center, and a part of the whole scheme was to have this natural environment with the pond, the lagoon, and the landscape and the walks around it, and then these concrete structures kind of centered on the edge of that landscape. So I like the calling attention to the landscape, which is a significant part of the site, and it was very well done. So anyway, I like the herons.
Wonderful. Is there anyone else? Either raise your hand or jump in. I'm doing my best to see the little pictures if you raise your hand. Yeah, I agree with that. The combination of the natural parts of the entire property with the building is definitely one of my favorite things about the site as well. And they're both great. A lot of good pictures.
I have a comment.
Go ahead, David.
This is titled Animals and Wildlife at the Civic Center. And I kind of, the first thing I thought of was the building, but the building is just a part of the center, and calling this as Animals and Wildlife. I think the landscape photo shows something that maybe some of the other photos that were presented doesn't. And that is, again, that natural environment. The stepping stones that were created in the upper right-hand corner that you're allowed to walk on and over the water and that. So as far as, animals, wildlife, I think that photo shows it very well. And with a little humor attributed to the Civic Center, I think that's a really good photo.
All right. Well, Zach, do you want to do the vote?
sure. My list is all the way at the top. Sorry. Commissioner Cottingham,
The city worker bee.
Commissioner Fuller,
Bees.
Commissioner Holton,
That blue herring.
Commissioner McGlinty Timbrook,
The bees.
Commissioner Inman,
Herons.
and Commissioner Zimmerman.
Worker bees.
Okay, that's 4 for worker bees. So worker bees will be awarded for animals and wildlife at the Civic Center. And we'll go ahead and move on to our next category, which was Civic Center building exterior. For this one, there was a pretty large majority vote, which I, for some reason, closed. So I'm going to pull that up again. For the one titled Mirror Pond and Building, which is this one on the right. but the second most votes, with 2 votes, was just Mirror Pond. So these are our 2. And the one on the right did have the majority of the votes, but you're also welcome to change your minds with your discussion. So I will leave that to you.
Thank you. Well, I'll open it up for discussion. Anybody, Juliana?
Yeah. I voted for the Mirror Pond and building photograph because I think it's a really nice juxtaposition of the brutalist concrete structure and then the soft landscape and the reflecting pond. And I thought that really showed off the exterior of the building or the buildings. And the landscape one just, I mean, it didn't really reflect the building at all.
I'm going to jump on Commissioner Emmons' statement and point of fact, like the building one also has people in it, which is a real cool thing. Like we can see people engaging and interacting with the civic space and with the landscape. So it absolutely has my vote too.
Excellent. Anyone else raising your hand or jump into it's a little harder for me to see if you have a hand raised. All right, seeing or hearing none. Would the reporter please do the roll call vote?
Okay. Commissioner Cottingham,
Mirror Pond and building.
Commissioner Fuller,
Mirror Pond and building.
Commissioner Holton,
Mirror Pond and building.
Commissioner Inman,
Mirror Pond and building.
Commissioner McGlinty-Timbrook,
Pond and building.
and Commissioner Zimmerman.
Mirror Pond and building.
Okay, so that's a unanimous vote for Mirror Pond and building. And we will go ahead and move on to our next category. So this one only had 1 entry. Everyone except for 1 person voted to award it to this one, and they just didn't vote on that one. They didn't vote to not award it, but they also didn't vote to it. So this is our only one. Of course, you can still decide not to award a photo in this category, but this one we will do like a normal vote, since there's not choices. It's just you either someone will move to award the photo and you'll vote yes or no. So that's where we go. Or someone moves to not award the photo. Either whatever. You're in charge.
We'll make a motion and we will vote
Yeah.
on it one way or the other. Well, I don't know that we need to discuss very much, but can't help myself. I would say that when I saw this is the sort of picture that would be, even if there were a bunch of others, it's really great.
I'll ditto Carol.
So
Same thing. I just thought it was really cool. I just thought it was a really cool photo and just liked it.
So I guess I will call for a motion.
I'll move to award the building interior award to the municipal cathedral.
I'll second that.
Excellent. Okay, I will now call for a vote to award the Civic Center Building Interior Award to Municipal Cathedral. All of those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed say nay. Motion passes.
Okay, and then moving on to our final category was Civic Center photos by staff. And we did have multiple entries. However, this one received every vote. So I figured that this would be the only one I would present. Same thing here as our last one.
Would anybody like to speak to this photo?
I'll speak to it. This is a well done photograph. It has, the brightness of the opening, contrasting with the darkness of the penetrations down on the lower floor. It captures the skylights, the angles, the brutalist architecture, and I just think they did a really good job on this photo.
I would agree. That I love seeing this, and that what's great about the whole property is the combination, as we talked about in the earlier photos, of those natural, but both the total scale, but also having those natural areas in the water and those features. But I know that when I saw this, I was like, oh, that's such a great example, along with that interior that we just looked at, of all of sort of the geometric components to the design. So I was happy to see a photo like this in here. Seeing no hands raised, not hearing anyone jump in, I will call for a motion on this photo.
I move that we vote, or that we award the Civic Center photo by staff award to the Lines photo.
I'll second that.
All right, Commissioner Inman makes motion, Commissioner Zimmerman seconded to award the Civic Center photo by staff to Lines. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed? All right, the motion passes.
Okay, and those are all of our categories that we received submissions for. There was a fifth category for photos of Salem in the 70s. However, we did not receive any submissions. So that's all of our photos for that. So thank you all.
Thank you, and as always, an extra thank you to Zach for doing all of the legwork to make it so that we can vote virtually and look at all these things virtually and make it really work well. Really appreciate that. Okay, moving forward on our agenda, the next topic is discussion items. We have one piece that we're going to put, I think, first here under discussion items, and then we'll pick up the regular order as was listed. Kimberly, do you want to lead us off?
Yeah, so this was a last minute addition, and this is really to circle back to Historic Preservation Month awards, and Zach has done a great job actually pulling together and actually getting the awards created, but we still need to schedule the coordination of going on site to present these awards to the winners, of which there are just a handful. I think it's 5. I sent an email, I think, to Carol and Andy. So I think I just wanted to have a brief discussion before we jump into newsletter and work plan assignments to touch base first to make sure that this is something that you'll want to do still. I know we did it for the photo awards. And if the answer is yes, then to check in with both Carol and Andy about scheduling and stuff with Zach.
And then just to give a little bit more background on this, so we finished all the photos for the photo winners, and we were waiting to receive the award, the physical awards that we were giving out to the Historic Preservation Month winners, and we received them about 5 days before I had some family emergencies and was unexpectedly out of the office for about 2 weeks, a little bit over that, and so it kind of got lost in the shuffle of things, but we are now prepared to take that up again if the commission wants to pursue that. So.
Excellent. Well, these are discussion items, so anyone can jump in. I will say, at least as chair, I think it's great. This is where we, again, in lieu of having in-person meetings, we've gone and done photos or meeting somebody either at the site or things like that in part of their recognition. And I know that I think it's a good way to do it, and I'm happy to participate.
I agree. I think it's a good way to kind of showcase the efforts that we gave awards to, especially since we're still, meeting virtually and they can't come down to the, the city hall chambers and meet with us face to face. So I think this is probably the next best thing. And the ones that we've had done previously, I thought came out really nice. So I think that it certainly would be good to continue that.
Okay, that's really helpful. So Zach, I guess this is a segue to the next topic, which is newsletter. And I know you have a theme identified, but and help me remember what we did last year. Would it be appropriate, like you did with the photos, to feature the winners in the newsletter after you've got pictures, or is that too much?
Potentially. I don't think it would be inappropriate, but it's not particularly on theme, I don't think. Well, I mean, in some ways it is, but so the theme for the newsletter is underrepresented voices. So I believe that some of the winners come from underrepresented backgrounds, but
Potentially.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I don't think it would be inappropriate to include that as just an article. It wouldn't be the feature, but it could be included.
Okay, so before we move to the newsletter as a topic, it seems like everybody's in agreement that it's good to keep recognizing those that way. And then I think the action step would be, Zach and I can work on scheduling.
Yep.
All right, that works.
Great, thank you.
Okay, next item is newsletter check-in.
So the last newsletter went out a little bit late because of me being unexpectedly out of the office. So we're going to push back the date of the fall newsletter just a few weeks, I think 2 weeks. It was originally going to go out the week of September 20th, but I think we're going to do it the first week of October now. Is the plan. Oh, I'm going to be gone. I'll make sure it happens. I'm out the first 2 weeks of October, just as a heads up. So we will get it out. I'll either have it ready to go by the time I leave, or we'll get it out right before then. But the theme that we had agreed on at the end of last year, early this year, was underrepresented voices. So anything that we want to write about. I know that there's some interpretation around town for like the historic Chinatown that used to be on State Street, State and High, I believe, is where that is. There's an interpretive panel that hasn't gone up yet for the tribes and their basketry, I believe. But so those are like jumping off points if people are interested in those. I've been doing a lot of research into queer history in Salem. So I might contribute an article about that, but if anyone has anything that they'd like to write about, or they know that they'd like to write something, but they don't know what topic and would like me to give them some suggestions, now would be a fantastic time to volunteer yourself.
I'm definitely interested in writing an article for the newsletter again. The Chinatown thing seems pretty interesting. I did some work on Chinatown in the West, the Chinatowns in the West back in college. But I've also been poking around, and something that's kind of been appearing on social media lately is some people talking about moved headstones from the state hospital sent down south to the state hospital's farm after bodies were disinterred and cremated. So there may be a little cemetery somewhere around town with nobody buried in it, which could be interesting if I can find some research on it. But the Chinatown is much more appropriate for underrepresented voices than a bunch of dead people who don't exist. So yeah, you said there was a panel about it that we could use as a jumping off point.
Yeah, so Kirsten Strauss, former staff member, when she was an intern, I believe she created some interpretive panels about Salem's historic Chinatown. I'm pretty sure I have a PDF of it, and I could just send it to you, so you don't have to actually go to the panel.
That would be great. Yeah,
but you can also
And
go
I
there
think,
if you
isn't
want.
it, in the panels actually, isn't it one of the wraps?
Yeah,
it's
a
one of
utility
the
wrap.
wraps. And there's
It's on a
also
utility
our
wrap.
article in OHQ, which is where all that information came from.
And Kim won an award for.
Well, yeah. So we can send you that.
Perfect. Okay. Yeah. Let's go over that then. I'd like to do something applicable and like attached to the living history of Salem. That would be nice.
Are any other commissioners interested in writing for the late September, early October newsletter? Maybe one or two of you are mulling it over. Okay, I'll send
We
out
can-
an email with some ideas, and people can volunteer.
That sounds good. And then of course we can have something, like, again, noting the award winners. Hopefully we'll have the pictures from that. Sounds good.
And that's all I have on the newsletter for now.
Excellent, thank you. All right, this brings us to our next piece, which is work plan assignment updates and check-in. And we can kind of go around. I'm going to use the agenda here first, of course. But we have some commissioners who are not here. So the first one is our Archaeology Month, which is October, with Commissioner Kurtman, to actually look at Kimberly, just to see if you have any updates that we can share.
Yeah, I have been talking
interim.
with Jessica about ideas for what we could do for Archaeology Month. And so in the past, well, it wasn't last year. We didn't do it last year, did we, Zach? Did we? We did one 2
I
years.
don't remember. I know
No,
we
you-
did one 2 years ago, but I don't remember doing one last
I
year.
don't think we got our act together for last year. And it was just a cool postcard that we mailed out with ideas for how to engage with archaeology. So we're considering something like that, but I'll have Jessica check in next month. Well, that'll be September. Yeah. So we should have something figured out
Yes.
hopefully by then.
Perfect time for an update will be September.
Yeah.
Social media and radio show, Salem History Matters. Andy?
I sent in the latest one that I did for the radio show earlier this week, kind of talking about the City Hall. And one of the interesting things I learned previously, I understood that there was a time capsule at City Hall, our current City Hall. It turns out there was talk of a time capsule, but one that never actually made it into the building. Like they talked about what was going into it, and it was displayed at the dedication of the city hall, but it never ended up going anywhere. I've had some discussions with Chris Rumbaugh with the library about putting an actual time capsule in, and so it sounds like we might need some funding help to make that happen. But it's interesting the fact that there wasn't one that was actually put in the building somewhere. It sounded like there might have been some finger pointing kind of at the end of the process. Somebody said, "Hey, let's put a time capsule in the new city hall," and people said, "Oh, this is great," and they used some of the old light fixtures from the old one and they filled it up with stuff, but then they didn't really have a place to put it. And it was just like, well, we should have a place for a time capsule, but they didn't. And I know when they were tearing down the 1890s city hall, they were looking for a time capsule. They just assumed that there was one put in there, and perhaps there was one, but it never was found as they were demolishing the building. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see if we could get one together. Like I mentioned, I talked with Chris with the library, and he provided a couple of ideas, but I guess it would just kind of be determinant on funding and where we could place it, and drum up some publicity to hopefully get some items that would be of note. The 1972 one included like some like almost like urban development plans or something like that, something that would be less interest to folks, I think, in the future, rather than maybe something more kind of really that speaks to Salem, like the community, rather than just something more of a governmental sense. But yeah, if we could somehow find or identify somewhere where there's some loose change or something in one of the couches at City Hall, and we could put all that together to get the time capsule rolling, I think that would be great. And even though today's the official 50th, I mean, at some point later this year or something, if it would be a possibility, I think that would be great to put in there. And hopefully that would kind of drum up a little more interest from the community, if they had a little more say in what would potentially go into a time capsule. Outside of that, yeah, the social media stuff's been going pretty well. I've been making sure to hype up our City Hall event today. So hopefully they have a decent crowd out there today, Kimberly. And yeah, just the usual bits and pieces here and there as things have come up. I've tried to get it out there, and as usual, if anybody's got anything, please let me know, and we can kind of try to grow our audience in any which way. If there's more information, whether it's at the neighborhood level, or if it's more photos or more chatter, that'll kind of generate some more interest with folks. But just let me know.
Yeah, we had a pretty good group of folks out here today, and it started at 3, and it's been, as you know, hot and a bit humid, and so there's lots of activities. They raised the new city flag. We gave an architecture tour. They were giving art tours, and I think they're giving a second round of tours right now as we speak. So I'm in here, I can't see out there, so I don't know. Yeah, and I do appreciate all the work that you've been doing on social media. And I think that, yeah, in terms of the budget for the time capsule, I'll talk to Lisa more about that, or maybe David can find some loose change around the city. He can talk more about that later. And then I don't know, in terms of the only other thing I wanted to mention about the Salem History Matters radio show, I think on our end, we're trying to work with our communications team to try to figure out a way to have those podcasts on our webpage. So, because we've been doing this since January, so it'd be nice to have a little library or even a link to KMUZ. So that'll be coming soon, hopefully. I don't know. Yeah, thanks.
Wonderful. Thank you. The next on our list here is the Highland Heritage Neighborhood Update. Commissioners and Timbrook.
We met with the chair of the Heritage Neighborhood for Highland, right? For the Highland Heritage Neighborhood. And basically, we're just talking over what what the job is, which is just a kind of reconnaissance level, like survey of a certain perimeter. I think we're still waiting to know like areas where we should go looking. So I haven't gone out and done anything yet. So, but I don't know what else, Juliana. Like,
yeah, there were some reservations from some of the neighbors, kind of concerns and fears about how intrusive this would be or how public the information would be and just that sort of thing. And I think Kimberly did a real good job of explaining what the purpose is and how it works and what our kind of the guess of the boundary is. And one of the reasons to do the reconnaissance is to set a boundary,
right.
to confirm that this is the boundary, and also to get an estimate of how many contributor structures or sites there are in the neighborhood.
I think it's a good education, like, in a way, like education outreach kind of aspect to it, to just, like they have a really strong idea of like what they want and different things that they want to do, but at the same time, not understanding like the whole process of it and, what it takes to, become a heritage district or a historic district versus just a heritage neighborhood, things like that. So I think it's actually, I think it's really good that we've been talking with them and, maybe break down some of the walls of,
Yeah.
identifying historic districts and all that kind of stuff. So.
Yeah, I was going to reach out and I didn't have time today. Are you available Wednesday at noon for check-in to get your like area assignments?
I will be out of town for work.
Well, we'll email you your
Okay.
your area. How about that?
That's fine.
And just let us know if you have any concerns about
I'm available
anything.
next Wednesday or the following Wednesday.
Okay, sounds good.
Excellent, thank you. David Holton, financial and grant funding opportunities update.
Yeah, what can I say? I don't have the magic coinage for grants for the residential toolbox program. And there's a lot of reasons, and I'd like to spend a little time this evening talking about grants and grants for especially private residential projects. And I'm sure Kimberly has been through this many, many times during this, but the current grant program started in 2011 with the approval of City Council. And the funds for that grant were obtained through what's called Certified Local Government Program. And if you all know this, I'm going to kind of bore you, but if you don't know this, this is a program, it's a federal program through the National Park Service, and it's administered by the State Historic Preservation Office. And these grants go to certified governments who meet the requirements for projects that deal with preservation, of their assets and their treasures. And so the grant here, a matching grant, was one of those programs that the city felt that was underserved. And so this was approved. And so like $5,000 was earmarked for this program. Now, the problem with grants, and we work with grants, our company, all the time, big grants, for funding not only preservation projects, but also for nonprofit projects. And they have one thing in common on these grants, and that is that they grant them to what benefits the public the most, or projects or buildings that are open to the public. So it's the public interest being served. And I've talked to Restore Oregon. Restore Oregon is a nonprofit group, and they're very helpful in assisting those who need, direction on whether it be commercial projects, restoration, or residential. And on their website and the forums, when you look down under historic homes of getting grants available, you see the word unlikely. And unlikely means there aren't a lot of opportunities for residential grants. Now, there are some opportunities, and that becomes through, if it's a low income housing, then you have some HUD opportunities, you have some tax opportunities, you have some mortgage opportunities. But because there are so many private historic homes that don't benefit the public per se, it's very, very, very difficult to find any grants. I've checked the grant books. Grant Watch is a great opportunity to see what's available under preservation grants. Very, very little. The biggest opportunity is through certified local governments grants or through donations. And I know there have been individuals who have donated to the grant program. I'm not sure what the city's ability is to accept donations and grants and how that all works. So I'm a little, I don't understand that. But I'm sure the city, since it has accepted grants in the past, has this avenue covered. I checked various cities across the United States, from Albany, New York to Albany, Oregon, and to see what they've been doing. If you Google grants for residential private properties, the first one that you get is City of Salem, Oregon. It's the top of the list, and there's very, very few cities that have this program. So, it's City of Salem is kind of a unique to have this. My suggestion, one of my suggestions is any grant money available through the general fund? Has there been an ask to put that on some way of directing some funds to this program? So that would be something that the city council will have to approve, city manager and all of that to do that. The second idea is how do you solicit funds from a private individual or a corporate donor for a program like this? I'm not sure how to do that. I don't know what the city requirements are for that. But that is an opportunity to do. I don't have good news this evening. I wish I had something to say that somebody like the Murdoch Foundation Trust or Kinsman Foundation or all of that would be applicable to this program, but it is not. Pass-through grants are very, very difficult for this program. Grants from people like Gates Foundation or any like that, their focus and is on a certain aspects of public use of something that will benefit the greater public, not individuals. So again, Salem is a little unique to have this program, but the funding sources are just not there. And so that's what I have this evening. I wish I had more, but at least we know what the problem is. And we know that that ability to get funds for private residential projects is really limited.
Thank you, David. I didn't know, so I didn't know that about Salem. That's interesting.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
and it actually makes me feel better that it's really hard to find, because I've been trying for a while, and although I was hoping you would find the magic.
Well, I think one thing that's really important though, when you do grant research work, is to know sometimes to know it's not available is
Yeah.
more important than to know it's available, because we all have limited time in which we can do research. And so we get frustrated when we can't find something that we think is out there. But the reality of it is there are so many residential properties that do not benefit the general population and aren't open to the public. Now, if this were something like Pittock Mansion or the governor's residence or something like that, which is a residential thing, then grants are available for that because they are open to the public or they do serve the public good. So those kind of projects are good. The other ones are basically financial institutions, tax breaks, or HUD, Housing and Urban Development Funds for certain types of residences. So there you go. Again, I wish I had better news.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, Julianne has a.
Yeah, I'd like to throw back out the idea of having an event, an annual event that is in the historic, one of the historic neighborhoods. And I'm thinking especially about a porch fest, which is music being played on porches on an afternoon of music on porches, and you can stroll around historic neighborhood and see the houses and the porches and see the music, and seek sponsors for that event, so that could be the seed money or the annual seed money for the toolbox grant. So it could be something that's recurring, and funds can be sought from nonprofits and service organizations and tourism groups and so on.
Let me address that a little bit, because there's been talk about having some events and all of that. And again, you have to be really careful with how you organize those. If you're a 501c3, you can accept donations and distribute donations through their programs, or you get into some issues with taxes and how you solicit funds and all that, and how the city's involvement of soliciting funds for an individual's benefit. I mean, that's the thing here is, you're putting it into a program, it's a matching grant program. I think legal would need to take a look at that and how that's arranged. The other thing is to possibly look at a nonprofit who's, who is out there that does sponsor something like this through their nonprofit, but
nonprofit partner is really helpful. And I'll say that I started a porch fest in Napa when I lived there, and in 2011 with two other women, we got together and we started this event, and it now draws 20,000 people, and there are food trucks around City Park, and just it's a very popular event and raises a lot of money through corporate contributions. And we had a nonprofit, the organization that I was president of, a nonprofit preservation organization, was the sponsor and had umbrella insurance for the event. So it's the kind of thing that it's, you know, having organized it and run it for years, it's a lot of work, and it really could be helpful though. And I would argue that the toolbox grants allow for property owners to do appropriate maintenance and restoration on buildings that are significant to the history of Salem. And they are, you know, maintaining the fabric of the neighborhoods is really important. And it's a great carrot for neighborhoods to consider becoming historic districts, because, you know, to get to the level where they can qualify to get toolbox grants. So anyway, it's an idea. It would take a lot of effort, but that's one avenue for getting dollars through nonprofits, through sponsors, through tourism.
And if I might jump in, the city is a 501c3, and we do have our legal department. Actually, back in 2011, we established a trust and agency account so that we could accept donations from our private donor and others. And so we do have that framework set up. And I think, to touch a little bit on what Juliana mentioned too, is that it has been determined that this toolbox grant, the money it does fit under that category of public benefit, because the historic districts do provide that sense of place, sense of history for the larger community. And so that's kind of the philosophy behind the toolbox grant, is that yes, these are privately owned properties. However, ensuring that these properties are maintained provides a public benefit back to the community. But right. I also hear what you're saying, David, in that like these big companies like Kinsman and all the other places that you've looked into, it's not really geared that way. It is more for the house museum and that sort of thing. So we're kind of in a tricky place.
And I think one thing you find is a lot of grants and a lot of donations is, why am I giving this money to the city of Salem?
Right. I know.
You know, that's the biggest thing, is why am I giving it to the city of Salem to do something like that? Why isn't it coming out of the general fund? If it's so important to the vibrancy of the city and to the character of the city and all of that, why isn't this a line item in the budget? And that's the problem that you face, as a catch-22 kind of thing. And
our donor actually did, and I can't remember what year it was, he did write a letter and to the council asking them to match his donation, which they have done. So we do have a line item now. It's not very big, but yes, it's there. So yeah.
But one other thing on that is, I think the public doesn't understand that. I don't think there's good information out there of what this grant is about. I knew nothing of how this grant was funded or anything until I started doing my research on this. You know, you kind of think there's money available and it's from the city. But to go back in the history of it and read how grant money is, is taken, the donation amounts from private individuals and all of that. So, I think there's kind of a void out there of what the public knows, and maybe that's something that in newsletters or in your social media or that to kind of explain that a little bit of how it's used and how it's not coming out of the general fund. And I think you may get some better results from that. That's what I have.
Thank you, David.
Yeah, thank you, David. That was great. And very nice. It cues me up for my next item, which is encourage sustainable practice. And it says coordinate homeowner forum meetings. So this was something, I believe, there was a homeowner that's used the toolbox grant who had been communicating with Kimberly, but talking about having some sort of a forum or some sort of a way for people that have used the toolbox grant to connect or share their stories. And we had at one point we did a toolbox grant, like a newsletter sort of topic, and I included, I think, a thing from sort of a success story or someone talking about it. So anyway, that was what David was just sharing kind of really does lead into this about having, I think it would be a great thing for us to have and David took some of my talking points, that it's pretty cool that we actually have a program like this in Salem. And then I know, even just from my background, and I'm sure many of you have this experience too, when people find out you do something with historic preservation, they have an old house, they're like, oh, there's lots of grants for that, right? And it's like, oh no, usually not. And tax credits and all that kind of thing. So I think it would be great both to promote the program, as well as ideally also encourage and support new and different homeowners to also, who could be getting these grants, to kind of know about it or maybe not feel intimidated by it. The program supports a lot of people that have done ongoing projects, but it'd be great to also find ways to bring others into the fold. So that's the general topic. And then Kimberly shared with me like one example of sort of what a forum could look like. And again, this would just be an online forum where you could kind of share stories or information. And then also that there's we're maybe using a blog. We have, is that the commission has a blog.
I feel like no one knows about it.
Somewhere.
Yeah.
But we could use that. And I'm just, this is purely just kind of thinking live here, but off of, especially I think of the things that David, you were ending on, that I think as much as there's a need for maybe homeowners connecting a little, I think there's clearly a lot of opportunity for us to also share more information about what the toolbox grant is, how it's funded. And then it could kind of turn into ways to, if we use the blog, for example, to also then have ways to highlight, people could talk about the projects they've done or have summaries of the things they've done. So that's what I have, unless Kimberly has anything else to add.
No, I think that's good. I think the idea behind the forum is just communication both ways, like with historic property owners, between each other, but also with us to them and back and forth. So
Yeah.
however we can do that.
All right. Code enforcement was Steve Ponce and Juliana. Do you have an update on that, Juliana?
Yes, we haven't met yet to really get into that.
That's all right.
And he's away right now.
All right. I'm sure we'll talk about it in the future. And then Brett, develop educational programming and online talks.
Yeah, this is very nascent. I just got some emails from Kimberly about it a couple of days ago, and the idea is that we're going to try to get some educational videos kind of like locked into one YouTube sort of location that we can kind of get a ball rolling on that. I've got a lot of questions about it, and there's got to be a little bit of dialogue before I really get my head wrapped around what's going on here. But we're aiming to make accessible a bunch of disparate kind of information across the internet in one location. Kimberly, do you have anything you want to add to that?
No, I think you covered it. I think there's a lot out there that's really good. And again, remembering that our audience is really the historic property owner, homeowner who might be struggling with how to maintain their historic property and trying to give them helpful tools, tips, that sort of thing. And also maybe, if you come across anything just really interesting related to just history too. So kind of, I see two different pots of potential
Cool.
topics anyway.
Cool. And it sounds like we'll hear more about that as we move forward.
Mhm.
Would that be like history? So was this like creating new content, or there's existing things and just kind of making a central place, or
The second one, unless you want to do a talk there,
No.
Carol. And
mostly the second one, but occasionally new things out as we go? No.
And Andy and everyone here, really.
No, that sounds good. I think that there's different ways, and there's different ways we all as commissioners and as individuals probably interact with history talks, all of that sort of thing in the community. But it'd be great to just have another place to have that centralized and amplified. It'd be good.
Mhm.
Cool. I think everyone who's here has been called on for one thing or another. So with that, I think that brings us to the Historic Preservation Officer report. Kimberly.
Yeah, I don't really have a lot to share other than what I've already shared. I do appreciate everyone being so open to my barrage of emails. I realized, we're more than halfway through our year, and I kind of wanted to make it easier to kind of go over our work plan assignments. So I made it more specific. And so thank you, everyone, for being willing to step up and pitch in and that sort of thing. I'm not going on vacation again for a while, so that's good. So I'll be catching up on stuff and things. And I really enjoyed the Civic Center birthday party today. If you get a chance to come by, we've got some really cool, I don't know, historic murals in the elevators. So right up and down on the elevator. It has the history of our old city hall, which Andy has a picture of behind him. And it's kind of sad because the picture we have is of it being torn down. And I'm curious what happened to the clock. This is a question I have, Andy. Where did that clock go?
It's in Mount Angel.
It is?
Yeah, it's the antique shop in Mount Angel that they have it working. They have this it's the old train station there in Mount Angel. You can kind of see it from the Oktoberfest area. But yeah, apparently it was sitting in the city shops until like 76, and then they had a auction, and somebody owned an antique shop out there in Mount Angel purchased it, and so the clock still works. It's just in Mount Angel now.
Oh, I have to go visit it.
I'd love to see that somehow end up back in Salem and within
Wouldn't that
one
be
of the
great?
downtown
Yeah.
areas sometime again. But yeah, apparently it's been out there in Mount Angel since like 76.
That's not the antique store that burnt down with the warehouse and all of that, was it?
No,
Oh,
I think
dear.
it's across the street. Luckily, it's
Oh,
like
that's good.
that
Okay.
one that burned down was like in one of the taller buildings, one of the old.
It's your
ag
warehouse
buildings.
building, yeah.
But yeah, this one's just this little train station
Okay.
that's I think yellow. It's like right on the main railroad tracks through town there. But yeah, I mean if you look at it, it looks pretty much like it did back when it was on City Hall. Last time I was through there, it was still working, but that's been a couple of years. But yeah, it's kind of hard to miss. It's just the little train station, and they've kind of got this the side of the building where they have the clock up high. It clearly was built for the clock. It doesn't fit the rest of the train station look. But I mean, like it feels like it should be like 30, much taller than what it is. But yeah, the clock's still there. It's been there since the mid 70s, and it's too bad that they couldn't find a place on City Hall, the current City Hall, to move it to. Just because it had been in Salem since like the 1876. I think it was when they put it on the county courthouse, and then when they tore that down, they moved it to City Hall.
That's so funny. Yeah, it should have.
And then they couldn't have found somewhere else to put it. I wish they had, because just the history of that thing. And I wrote about it years ago for the newspaper. And in I think the early 50s is when they silenced the clock because there was complaints downtown by the
Was it too
Hotel.
loud?
It was just too loud. And so they silenced it, I think, in the early to mid 50s somewhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, apparently they had to update, they had to replace like the hands and stuff because they got damaged over the years from the weather when they moved it from the courthouse to the city hall. But I mean, like the gears and all of the internal stuff apparently was still pretty workable. And yeah, so now it's just working and helping people know what
Angel.
time it is in Mount Angel.
Wow,
Yeah.
I did not know that. Thank you.
I'm not gonna try to screen share and mess anything up here, but if you just Google Mount Angel, Oregon train station.
Oh, you can see the clock.
There's pictures pop right up, so. Nice work,
Well,
Andy.
Thank you, Andy. I had one last thing, and I think I was chatting with Juliana and maybe, I don't know who was on early. Was it David? I can't remember. I have an idea. I know we all had a good time at our field trip to the Justice Building. And I thought it would be fun to do a field trip out to the Grand Ronde Reservation to the museum out there. I know that's much further than normal. And if you're interested, I could look into like getting a van and we could go out as a group, but only if you're interested. They have a wonderful museum out there if you haven't been. And maybe we could shoot for doing that during archaeology month because, it's kind of they have some great stuff out there. So
Love
Just
field trips.
yeah.
not, I know you're putting out there as an idea. I guess the question for scheduling would be, would you be thinking, like, what would the time commitment be? And would
Yeah,
be
it takes
a
a bit to get
weekday
out
or
there.
weekend?
It's up to you guys. I mean, you guys tell me. I would have to double check their hours. I know you guys, a lot of you work, so it would be a challenge, I'm sure. So maybe Zach, you could send out we could send out a little poll and see. And Zach, I know you're gone the first 2 weeks in October, right?
Yeah, I can send out a message.
Just see just see what people are feeling and whether weekday or weekend is better.
Okay.
And then we can kind of go from there.
Okay.
Next, the coast. No.
All right.
Yeah. Well, thank you, everyone.
Thank
Well,
you.
wonderful. That brings us to the end of our agenda. And so I'll now adjourn.
Thank you.
Gavel